Hello and welcome, class. Today we are going to learn how to create an Andy Warhol design using none other than our friend Adobe Photoshop. I am using Adobe Photoshop 6.0, but you can pretty much use any Adobe Photoshop version that you have. Okay, here we have a colored image, and this image that we're using here is I would consider a very good image to work with because we have some nice defined details in the eyebrows, the eyes, the glasses makes a nice element, as well as the lips. So let's get started. By the way, this is my daughter we call Frenchie, and we're going to use her as our sample. Okay, here we go with our Andy Warhol design. Before we get started, you can see that we have our layers palette out, our history palette, as well as our paths palette, and as well as our main toolbox. Before we get started, let's go ahead and double click on this little lock to get rid of it. Double click and say OK, and it removes it. Okay, let's go ahead now and let's drop out this color, because Andy Warhol started off with very basically black and white images. So what we'll do is we'll go over here to image, we'll go to mode, and we will convert to a grayscale. Now, as you can see, we do have a grayscale, which is very basically a black and white. Okay, next thing that we're going to do is we are going to drop out the background, because Andy Warhol had very vibrant, very interesting backgrounds. So let's get to it. So we're going to be using the pen tool here, and the pen tool works in conjunction with the path tool, as you can see up in the top left-hand corner underneath Photoshop. We're going to start down here at the very bottom of our image, and we are just very basically going to click and drag. What we are creating are Bezier curve paths. And I'm going to do this very quickly. Some of you might think that this is a little difficult and challenging. When I first started out many years ago, mastering the pen tool was key as a graphic designer working in these various programs such as Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe InDesign. If you decide that you're going to become a graphic designer or a graphic artist, using the pen tool is one of the main essential tools in all the various Adobe programs. Okay, as you can see, I'm coming around, I'm almost done, and I'm clicking, dragging, and pulling in the direction of the image to make the curve. Now I'm coming to a complete path, and I'm going to take my direct selection tool, and you can see that I have a path completely around my entire image. Now I will go to my paths palette. You can see the outline here on this little icon, and I'm going to click make at the very top and make a selection. We're going to type in 1 pixel feather radius to smooth out some of the sharp spots, and we're going to go back to the pointer here. We are going to go back to layers and make sure you are on your layer. Okay, and now let's go ahead and delete the background, and as you can see, the background is completely deleted. We're going to click using our marquee tool to stop the marching ants, as we call them in the world of graphics. And now we are going to apply a white background, because it's very difficult to see this transparent background, especially when you're trying to create a really interesting design and you need some contrast. So let's go ahead and click and make a new layer. We're going to drag that layer underneath our main layer. I'm going to double click and I'm going to type in white. There we go. And I might as well go ahead and name my image. So I'm going to call this image 1. Let's go back to the white layer. We're going to go to Edit. We're going to Fill. We're going to fill it with white and say OK. and now we have a white background. Very good. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to create that high contrast image that Andy Warhol is known or noted for. So we're going to be using a tool called a levels tool or a levels attribute. And very basically, if you're in Macintosh, you can do a Command L and out pops the dialog box here. But I noticed that we are not selected onto the image, so we're going to cancel this here, and we actually need to get right on the image or nothing will happen. So let's go ahead and do a Command L again, and let's go ahead and create our high contrast image. In class, we learned that this tool right here is known as the highlight pointer, this is the midtone pointer, and this is the shadow pointer. So we're going to take the highlight pointer and we're going to move it to the left, and we're going to drop out a lot of the tone in the face and in the bust area. Okay, this looks really good. I like the contrast. I think we've got it. And let's just say okay. All right, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this little part right here. I'm going to use a tool called a magic wand. Let's see if we can take that little part out. We can. We're going to delete it, and now it is no longer there, which I think makes the image look much better. Okay, there's a little tiny spot that I need to get rid of right here. Let's see if we can get rid of that, and it's gone as well. Okay, this is phase 1 of our Andy Warhol design in Photoshop 101. I will see you in Photoshop phase 2 Andy Warhol design. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later. Okay, class, welcome back. This is Photoshop 101, and we are creating an Andy Warhol design, and this is phase 2 of our Andy Warhol design. Okay, let's go ahead and continue where we left off. Now we are going to create that Andy Warhol look applying color. So the first thing that we are going to do is we need to make a backup of our image. So here's our image being selected. You can see that this is our image because it's selected, as well as if you click on this little eyeball, the image will disappear. So we're going to go up to our layers pointer right up here, and we are going to duplicate the layer. I am going to call this master image, just so that we have a backup. And I will turn off the eyeball, and let's go ahead and create color. So one of the things that we need to do if we are going to create color is we have to go back to this grayscale image in Photoshop, and we have to go to the mode, and we have to go from grayscale to CMYK color. We'll click on that, and it will say on this dialog box, do you want to merge? And of course we don't want to merge because we don't want to lose our layers. So we'll say don't merge, and out will pop another dialog box, just say okay. And now we are now back in color, as you can see, CYMK color. CMYK color is color that we use in the graphic communications field, as well as the digital imaging and the graphic design field for doing 4-color process. Okay, now let's go ahead and click on our image 1. Here it is right here, and we are going to apply color. So we're going to focus on that in the style of Andy Warhol, and let's enlarge on a certain area. Let's go ahead and start off with the lips first, and we are going to need to create another layer. So I'll take and make another layer. I'm going to double click here and define this layer, which are the lips, and it is on top of image 1. Okay, so we're going to use the pen tool again, and the pen tool is all set up and ready for us to create. So I'm going to use once again the Bezier curve paths, and I'll just kind of glide along here. And remember, this is Andy Warhol, an Andy Warhol design, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Andy Warhol liked that rough look. Okay, now we've created our color for our lips. We will now go ahead and go to our paths, and you can see the little tiny lip up there. We'll make a selection here, 1 pixel feather radius, just like we did previously on our outline. We will say OK, and now you can see the lips being encircled by the marching ants. We're going to click on layers, make sure you are on the lips. We are going to go to Edit, Fill, because we're going to fill it with a color, and we're going to go up to Color. Out will pop our color picker, which is basically a spectrum of color. I'm going to go with the nicest, darkest red that I can find, kind of a real lipsticky color. Say OK here, and there's the lips. Now they look really, really bright, and there's no detail. So what we're going to do with these lips is we are going to drop down the opacity. The opacity is the amount of color coming through. The less opaque, the less color is coming through. So we'll drop this down a little bit, and you're going to start to see a little detail. There we go. That's the detail that I'm looking for. Okay, very good. Let's move along. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to create some eyes with color. So we need to create another layer, and we'll double click on this layer, and we will call them eyes. And I'm going to basically take this and put it underneath our master, so everything's kind of together. And let's get to it. Once again, our pen tool. Now this is where I really need the Bezier curve, because I'm drawing kind of a circle to capture the eyes. Here's one, and the next one. Okay, now I'm going to take my direct selection tool, which is the white pointer, and I'm going to select one eyeball and then the other eyeball, and then I'm going to go to the paths. You can see the two little tiny dots, and make a selection, 1 pixel feather radius. It's all basically the same thing. And then we're going to go to Edit, Fill, and Color. And my daughter actually has hazel eyes, but I'm going to give her blue eyes, right? And that really looks blue. Don't worry about it, because we're going to drop the opacity down on it. Okay, so OK, and very super blue eyes. But once again, we are going to go back to our layers, take that layer and drop the opacity down once again. And now you can see through the eyes. Okay, very good. Maybe a little bit more. Right about there, looking good. All right, another thing we are going to do, let's go ahead and reduce this image down a little bit. There we go. So everything is looking very, very good. Now, on top of this, we are going to create eyeshadow. And so we need another layer, call it eyeshadow. Make sure you stay on that layer. Pen tool. Let's go ahead and enlarge in this area. Start on one eye. Maybe I'll reduce it down just a little bit. Just a little bit. Kind of get ourselves back where we're supposed to be. There we go. And we are now creating the look of the eyeshadow. Okay, there's the first one. We'll move our image over a little bit, and we will create the eyeshadow on the next one. If you have to backstep, you can go to the history, and it follows all of your procedures. And now let me go ahead and recreate the eyeshadow here. Okay, we've got both our eyes selected. I will use the direct selection tool once again. Select one eyeshadow area, the other area, go back to our paths, go to make a selection, 1 pixel, and let's get some color. So we're going to go to Edit to Fill, go to Color, and let's use some I like turquoise eyeshadow because that's pretty much what Andy Warhol used with the famous Marilyn Monroe image. So I'll say okay, okay, and there's the eyeshadow. And once again, opacity, we'll go back to the layer and we'll drop the opacity down to see some detail behind, and that's looking good. Everything's pretty balanced and I like what's happening. Yes. Let's reduce it down just a little bit, and here we have our image. Last but not least, we are going to create the tone within the face and within the chest area here. So we are going to now get our image 1. We are going to make a duplicate of our image 1. We are going to call it image 2. Say OK. And we are going to leave this image right here where it's at for right now. We might adjust it. And now we're going to use another attribute called colorizing, and we'll do a command U. And it's very basically hue and saturation, but here's the colorizing button. We're going to colorize our image, and as you can see, it's just automatically changed. And let's go ahead now and find some color. I want to get a real red look to it, as well as to add some tone within the face like this, to put some tone in the face as well as the chest area. And I really like what I'm seeing with the red. As you remember, she had a red streak in her hair, so I'm going to try to get that, try to reproduce or replicate that certain look. So I'm adjusting these up a little bit to where I feel that they're working. Okay, I think I like what I have. Very good. Okay, and last but not least, we are going to put a background in. You remember our white background, so we'll click on our white background here, and we're going to go to Edit, Fill, Color, and I'm going to choose a yellow because it's very indicative of that bright Andy Warhol look. Say OK, OK, and there's our yellow background. Okay, we are complete with this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that you did learn how to create an Andy Warhol image in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, class, now it is your turn to create that Andy Warhol look in Photoshop. Now, some of the things that you're going to have to take into consideration is trying to find the right photograph. Whether you are taking a picture of your subject or you're using a photograph, make sure that you find an image that has certain prominences such as lips, eyebrows, eyes, eyelashes, and maybe even other elements like glasses or earrings or a hat or hair. Those are the type of things that you really want to have within your composition. Make sure that you are able to drop out the background effectively to apply a new background. Make sure that you do some elements or incorporate some elements like creating the lips, creating the eyeshadow, possibly colorizing earrings, and colorizing the face, possibly colorizing the hair. And if you follow that suggestion, I think that you will be able to create that unique Andy Warhol design. Okay, that's it, and I will see you back in class to answer any questions that I can and encourage you and motivate you to create the best Andy Warhol design that you can do. All right, we'll see you in class. Bye for now.